We're living in a digital world where classrooms have screens and endless possibilities. Just a click away to fuel our dreams.
In the realm of tech, we guide educators and enthusiasts side by side. We'll navigate you through EdTech's innovations true, sculpting classrooms with tech as our guide.
Wow. Did you make that up? Or is that, did you steal that from somewhere?
Yeah, I like to think I'm a lyrical poet, don't you know it? But no, that wasn't me, I'll be honest. That fancy limerick was provided by none other than Brisk Teaching AI, which, we're going to be talking about again here today. So
yeah, we can say that you made it. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I did make it.
You did write the prompt.
I did write the prompt. That is true. Actually, I can't actually say that I did that either because I really took our last intro that we used, which was written by ChatGPT, to actually, basically, I just said, I took that last thing and said, turn this into a limerick, and it did.
Nice.
So, yeah, well, hey, I'm using my resources and my tools that I have available to me, just like any good student and any good teacher would do, right?
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, welcome to the Integrate This EdTech podcast, the go-to digital space for educators, tech enthusiasts, and apparently poet wannabes under the influence of AI. I'm your host, David Berner, along with my co-host, Jeremy Mikla. Let's pick up where we left off last week. And Jeremy, remind everyone where that was.
Last time, we had the pleasure to share how educators can use Brisk Teaching AI to up their lesson planning game. There's so much more to Brisk that we couldn't fit it into just one episode. So today, we're launching Brisk Part 2, where we will explore how to use Brisk AI to create rubrics, provide feedback to students, and even how to help assist you in designing course syllabi and adding structure to some observation notes.
As always, you can find that video and more on our YouTube page. We love hearing about any tips you'd like to share with us and others, so please leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to connect with us by subscribing and liking our videos and following at Integrate This on X and Instagram.
All right, diving in, we're going to start off here with taking a look at some of the features that we didn't talk about last time about Brisk Teaching AI. And we really didn't get into some of those things that are part of the subscriber section of Brisk Teaching AI, meaning that they are going to be ones that you would have to pay for eventually once your free trial runs out. Or maybe you take advantage of your free trial period that you have and start thinking ahead to next year for some of these things that you might want to use. And in particular here, I'm going to take a look at the syllabus creation tool. And you can see that because it has that little ribbon next to it, that it is one of those features that is available for subscribers for the fee for those people to be able to use. Anyway, was able to access that through that Brisk button, which we showed last time. And I have here just basically a Google Doc that highlights a course that I want to be able to teach. And I put in there the objectives of the course, where they can find the online textbook, and the 5 units of study that would make up that particular course. So I'm going to hit the Brisk button here, and I'm going to choose Create and select Syllabus for what I would like to do. So then it says, again, it shows you the tool that you're using, which is the syllabus. And it says, what should the syllabus cover and to be as specific as possible? So I just wrote up a little bit of a description thing here about this particular course. It's actually one that I've taught before. So I have a good idea of what it should look like, I think, when it's done. But it's actually a dual credit class that a student would get both college and high school credit for taking. So the rigor of it should be pretty solid. I have these 5 units, which I actually included in that particular course, that also had an exam that would come at the end of each of those units. weeks, and some sort of a research-based or writing activity that would come for each unit. So I'm going to ask here Brisk Teaching AI to generate this for me. Now, since this is a college in the schools class, an upper level one, I'm just going to choose an upper level grade, for example, 12th grade. And it was a one semester class, which in our high school was 18 weeks. So I'm going to select that for the length of the class and then choose to brisk it. So what it's going to do is it is going to because I did this on a Google Doc, it is creating this syllabus for me as I'm talking here on that same Google Doc that I had the outline of stuff before. So you can see that it included some of the objectives that I had, the textbook, and the different units that are associated with it. It gives me some ideas and expectations for student behavior, perhaps. And then it's breaking down the course into a week by week outline of what it should include. So I'll just go back here a little bit so that you could see some of the things that are in there. The course objectives. Here's again the link to the textbook that would be used. It breaks down and says, hey, chapters 1 through 3 really cover that first unit really, really well. It talks about there'll be just some basic things in here about exam and the research projects. It gives me suggested grading policies, which I could, of course, because it's a Google Doc, change any way that I want it to. And then it gives me some week by week breakdown. So it includes just kind of the basic bones outline of this here. But now what's cool with Brisk AI here is I can go back into Brisk AI and I can go and choose to create. Perhaps I would like to make a more specific plan for this first unit with the class discussions, activities, and the reading assignments. So like last time we showed lesson plan, I can go in and I could say, all right, give me a lesson plan here that would go along with chapter 1. And I wanted to include class discussion, and I wanted to include some sort of collaborative activity. I'm not going to redo that again because we already went over these things. But you can see it gives me a pretty good rough outline of what a syllabus should be able to show students at the outset of your particular course. Now, there's also another way to create a syllabus if you don't have, say, that Google Doc or you haven't maybe taught that class before, but instead you have a different website perhaps that does contain a lot of the information that maybe you would like to include. So there's this great site here on American government. It comes from ushistory.org. That includes many of the same outline types of information here. It shows into 12 different chapters or sections that we have here. But I can also go into, and because Brisk works on any Google Doc, any website, I can go and choose to create here again a syllabus for a course that is going to be about this web page. And again, I could change it, maybe because this isn't for that dual credit. Maybe I want to make it a 9th grade class, but my semester is still the same, 18 weeks. So I'm going to choose to brisket for this one as well. And it opens up for me because it was a web page, a brand new Google Doc. And it is going to start creating it on this web page. You could see it called it a grade level 9 syllabus. And here it goes. So it's creating this based upon information that it's finding on that website that I was on. And so again, the objectives, a grading policy, expectations, and then goes into what some of those different weeks would entail. And as it builds it out here, you could see that it's including many of those different things. It's even because remember that one only had like what 12 different chapters or sections on it. So it found ways to build out some of those different sections and make them a little bit maybe more planned out over time. as that syllabus got created. So great little handy tool here to save you time, some foster some efficiency here. And even if this is just your starting point of putting together your syllabus for a course, maybe one you've never taught before, what a great time saver not to have to come up with all of that from scratch. So that is this feature here of creating a syllabus based upon the content that you have here. Now, there's another feature here or some other features here within Brisk AI that we're going to go a little bit more in depth to. A little bit of a mix of what you would need the subscriber part for and what is available for free. And it's this area here under the Brisk button that we didn't really touch on before, but it's called Give Feedback. So within Brisk Teaching AI, there are 4 different types of feedback styles here. We have the targeted one. So the targeted one would take would take comments, or would take a student Google Doc and make your comments align to your rubric and your standards, and allow you to leave that feedback for students that they could then take and they would use them as suggestions to make improvements then upon whatever it is that they're working on. And as you can see, this one does have the little ribbon down here at the bottom. So the targeted feedback would be definitely one that would be for subscribers. Then they have Glow and Grow, which is going to give the student feedback for things that they're doing as well as areas where they need some improvement. And I know I remember back in my student teaching days and getting ready because, I had to do parent-teacher conferences, right? And I remember my cooperating teacher, she said to me, what you want to do is the sandwich philosophy. And I'd never heard what the sandwich philosophy was before it. And so she's like, yeah, you're going to sandwich the bad between 2 different goods. So make sure that you're always telling the parent first thing something good about their student, then slip in kind of those areas for improvement that they need, and then finally end with something good or some other area that you see them improving upon too. So I think that kind of fits along with that philosophy that I learned very early on, and I definitely carried it through in the classroom and through with parent-teacher conferences, and I think it made my conferences anyway go a heck of a lot smoother because of that. And the same thing then applies to the different paper. So the other areas here of feedback are rubric criteria, and I know David is going to go off and talk about some examples there with the criteria based upon the different categories you would set up within your rubric. So you would give your rubric as part of that, which you can also have, by the way, Brisk help you create that rubric for. And then it also gives some suggestions to students on perhaps some next steps that they can take, either to build up some of their paper, give it a little bit more depth, a little bit more meat to it, or suggestions that they could take. Maybe even sometimes like you need more examples here, or maybe this wording of this sentence is a little bit different, and or could be done a little bit different. So take some time and fix those things. And again, the student then has to decide how to integrate that feedback they get into improving whatever their assignment happens to be. So, David, are you ready here to show us some of the samples and examples that you have?
I have to give kind of a quick shout out to Todd Steve. Used to be a colleague of mine, and he still teaches science where I used to teach. And he gave me some documents to kind of help with this rubric thing that we're doing. Um, so going back to what you said, one of the things that you had mentioned when you were talking about the various types of feedback is you had mentioned that not only can we use our rubrics that we've got to create the feedback for students, but you can also create a rubric off of directions that you've already got. And one of the coolest things about Brisk, and really as we've been moving forward and looking at these AI tools, one of the coolest things to me is just the ability to start with an initial construction of something and then build off of that, which is basically what you were doing with the syllabus, because you start with nothing, and then all of a sudden you've got a syllabus, and then from there you start picking and choosing pieces from your syllabus to then create lesson plans, and then you just keep going and going and going, and so you're starting from scratch and then building all of your content, and all of the pieces that would go along with your content assessments and um, student work and all of that
It
in
just
one.
starts to branch out, right? You pick one spot and you can just add this, add this, add this, and really use
Yeah.
it to create a big web of
Yep.
everything that you eventually would need.
Yeah, yep, and it really you can do it pretty quick. It's that's one of the things that's kind of blown my mind is we've been playing around with these different tools, and Brisk in particular is just the ability or the efficiency at which it produces these things. Granted, we always throw the caveat in there that you should still check and make sure that it's what you want and that the information is accurate. But in a general sense, it pushes out some things for you immediately. So I do want to look. So this is for an honors chemistry class, Mr. Steve there, and this is the directions that the students have for creating their lab reports. And so I do have two student examples here that we're going to look at. But what I wanted to do first is, if we let's say that going back to, if we don't have anything but this lab and we don't have a rubric set up yet, we could do that. So we would just go to our create button and click rubric, and then we can select that here. Um, Now you could pull in a standard if you want, or you can write in that you need a rubric for this assignment. And so I'm just going to be real generic. Okay. And I just, 10th grade, 4-point scale. One of the things that we've looked at before too, is the prompt booster, which is kind of a nice little feature, to be able to make, Brisk will take and make your very generic entry, your prompt, much more complex or full. Now this is not something that you would have to do. I think it's a good exercise just to see how Brisk will read the document and then produce something for you based on the contents of the document. Um, so for this, I'm going to be really generic in terms of what we do for this assignment. So I'm just going to say, I need a rubric for this lab report assignment. Okay, and again, you can pull in your standards if you want to, and we'll click Brisket, and it's going to it does it in plain text first each time you do this. So you'll see these dotted lines. So if you're like, that doesn't look right, it'll do it in plain text, and then it'll transition it into an actual table in the document. So there you go. So you'll have your traditional looking rubric that you could print off or whatever you want to do there. It just doesn't do it right away. It has to formulate it first, and then it'll push it out. So there we go. So we have, in this case, we have our lab report assignment, and then we have our lab report rubric. And then what's great too is, like anything that we've done with these AI systems, you're never stuck with what you have. You can always go in and you can make changes if you need to. Um, Mr. Steve had his own rubric here. And so one of the things that's interesting is if they do standards based grading at that school. And so they have these scales already set. One thing that is interesting is maybe making a rubric for an assignment and then comparing it to an already created rubric. In most cases, you're probably doing it because you don't have a rubric yet. But at the same time, it's kind of interesting for those that already have a created rubric to make one and then make some comparisons to see if there's anything that you could alter with your own that you've already created. But that would be how you create the rubric. Okay. And then now that we have it, what about when we have our student example here? The first thing that we can do is, if we want to give feedback, we're actually going to select the rubric criteria. And what these allow you to do is this allows you to upload the rubric that you have. So now whether I want to use this one or I use this one, doesn't really matter. The main thing here is that it's going to take the rubric that you insert into this prompt, and then it's going to essentially grade it based off of that. Okay. So I already downloaded Mr. Steve's original rubric into a PDF. And so I'm just going to click upload rubric, and here it is right here. So I'm going to grab that PDF and it's going to insert it in. I do want to just change. I'm going to make sure this is 10th grade. And then here, oops, here we can just go over and we can click brisket and it'll just based off there. If there's for some reason some other things you need to focus the feedback on, maybe if there's an additional piece outside of the rubric that you want to make sure that it covers, you could enter that in there. But we'll click brisket and then it's going to start to put out the responses to the student's work. And it's going to do it on this little sidebar over here. And then what you can do is if you want to insert those, you can. So like for procedure, we'll just do this so it's correct here. Maybe we want to just have our procedure notes here. So I'm going to copy that and then I'm going to paste that in. So this is actually my feedback for that student in regard to procedure. So what's nice is it's reading the different areas based off of the rubric, because if we look at Mr. Steve's, we have here's our categories: formatting, purpose, procedure, data analysis, and conclusion. And then it's taking into account what the um, what you need to have in order to meet like the highest criteria. So then when you have gaps in that, and if it's something that's not, meeting that highest mark, this is going to give some feedback. And one thing that's interesting is you'll have like positive feedback, or you'll have, like in this case for procedure, you'll have like a positive and then a constructive criticism there as well. So you have both of those, and then you could continue to insert in. So if you know, like your data analysis, you can put that here and just continue working through that based on the rubric. Okay. So, and you could do that for all of your students. You could just, and one thing that's actually really nice that I found out is that if, let's say this is student 1 and then student 2 is here, I noticed that when you click Brisk and you go to give feedback and do rubric criteria again, it actually keeps the rubric inserted in there, which is great because if you're sitting there and you've got to go through 20 of them, it already puts the previous one in, and then you can just continue going through and doing that for each different student's assignment. And then you've got your feedback there. One thing obviously to be aware of is that when you are making switches, if you are switching over to a new assignment, um, you'll want to check and make sure that when you do click on give feedback, if you don't want that rubric in there, just hit the X and then that will allow you to upload a different one into it. So that's how you can, grade your students pretty efficiently, give them feedback specific to the rubrics that they've already received and that they're basing their work off of. And then it's a really great way to get them that feedback. One last thing that Jeremy had mentioned is just the targeted feedback. And again, this is a premium feature. So if your school or district pays for Brisk, this would be something that would be available to you. But we can take this same assignment, and then this is really interesting when you do targeted feedback. It looks similar to the rubric criteria where we had the sidebar of the feedback, but it allows you to do comments. So I can go to targeted and do upload rubric. We're going to use the same one. And what this is going to do is actually highlight pieces on the document and then generate feedback specific to that thing. So when you have something that is, say, like in our procedure right here, and it's really detailed feedback, which I think is why this part of the paid version, because it's really nice. The one thing that's cool about it is that it takes procedure and then it considers like what the student did for the procedure part and identifies a singular item on the procedure and then writes details on just that part. So then the student can just address that one single area within the category of the rubric. So like if our rubric has a procedure section, it's identifying the weakest part of their procedure section and then writing details on that part. So then it leaves the things that are quality and then it just offers constructive criticism on those things that could use some improvement. And then what's cool is it also is in editing mode. So it's like as soon as they put the comments in there with the targeted feedback, you still get last say, right? It's always like the teacher gets the last say as to what is going to actually be put in. So you'll notice that these aren't inserted yet. They're just there. And then what I can do as a teacher is if I feel satisfied with that, then I'll just click comment and then now it's there and now the student can see it and then we can have a dialogue with the Google Docs tools that are in there. We can talk about that specific section. And then like if I think that Brisk made a mistake for some reason on this targeted feedback. And let's say that, well, I told them to do this. This is what I wanted them to do. Well, I'm going to cancel that. That one's fine. Like as a teacher, I'm good with how that went. I'm not worried about it. And then let's look at our consistency and data analysis. Maybe I just want to change this question at the end, but I like the feedback, but I want to maybe make it a little bit more concise or add some more detail. I can do that. So I can just add in more comments here or questions. And then when I'm ready, I can click comment and there it's in the document. So a lot of cool ways to give student feedback and to use this system to make your life as a teacher a little bit more efficient, a little bit more easier.
And one of the things that's coming with Brisk's student-driven platform that they're going to have, I think that's going to be called Brisk Boost, is teachers are going to have the ability to be able to see how the student takes those suggestions to improve their document. And kind of like we showed last time in the replay, the teacher is going to be able to see how the student took that AI generated content and made it their own, and then worked it into whatever their assignment happened to be. So that's going to be kind of a cool thing, and maybe a little foreshadowing of our next few episodes that we're going to have here too. Okay, the last feature that we're going to look at here with Brisk, as far as our part 2 of the series goes, is about taking observation notes and then having Brisk do some of the legwork for you. So you've got these notes, and I'm going to do 2 different examples here. This first one is imagine a special education teacher going in to do an observation of a student in a regular ed classroom. And so the teacher goes in and they make all of these notes about a particular student. And you'll notice here that I use no personally identifiable information when writing up these notes. It just says student. And you also know that the student's data that you're entering in isn't going to necessarily be used in other data sets to help improve the performance of the AI, or just as a way not to have their personal information out there. So I'm going to take these observation notes and I'm going to say that this was an observation. And so I'm going to go into the create part, and under administrative tasks, there is an option here for observation notes. Additionally, there's also some other special ed features that you can also include that have been added into some of the paid for the subscriber features of Brisk. Some multi-tiered stuff, as including a menu and a template, as well as some IEP and some 504 plans that are definitely available. And definitely, if you're a special ed teacher who deals with any of those things, the multi-tiered systems of support, 504 plans or IEPs, you should definitely dive into those different things. But for here, we're going to do some observation notes that we took on a 6th grade student in a science class. And what I would like it to do is to make some recommendations for their upcoming IEP evaluation. And then I'm going to choose to brisk it. And it starts to do its magic. And remember the feedback areas that we talked about before? One of those topics was the glow and the grow. So I really like what it did here, taking these observation notes that we had and gave some of those strengths as well as some of those areas in need of improvement based upon the observation notes that the teacher took on that particular student, giving you some next steps and recommendations and some other things to consider. Of course, it's going to, kind of give its little disclaimer that they're based on an observation during one class. So make sure that you're definitely pulling in some of the other information that you have on that student when you actually are going to pull them into that evaluation. All right, the second way that I want to show observation notes here with Brisk is imagine a principal going in to do an observation of a teacher. And again, starts with some of those basic kind of things, what they saw, what strategies management, and again, no PII being used here. So I'm going to take this part here and I'm going to ask it to brisk this principal observation here. So I'm going to go also into those observation notes and I'm going to paste this in here. And I'm going to say that it's a kindergarten teacher. I give it a little more background that they're in their 2nd year of teaching and that they want to use these observation notes to help write up a formal evaluation of this particular teacher. So I go in there then and I click brisket and it generates some of those things that I'm going to include in the formal evaluation of that particular teacher. So again, the areas of strength, the areas suggested for improvement, as well as what some of those next steps are. Then it begins drafting that letter that you would then send along with that particular formal evaluation of that particular teacher. You can see it's pretty in depth into what it gives into that evaluation that that principal did. And again, remember that you can always use these other tools here to either make it shorter, longer, more or less detail. And of course, because it's this Google Doc, you can add other features into it. And you can, like we talked about before, take part of it and use it to branch out with some more specific examples. And it's just kind of, again, another great time-saving tool if you are an administrator, and especially you're going around and you're doing several of these observations in a week, and it just gives you a lot then to go off of, and I think a really good place to help make that observations and those evaluated criteria something that can really be used to help that particular teacher.
Thanks for tuning in to Jeremy's Poetry Slam and the Integrate This EdTech podcast. We hope you have picked up some valuable insights to help you explore Brisk Teaching AI and its best features. Special thanks to our poet, Jeremy Mikla, and all our viewers for joining this digital exploration. I'm David Berner. Until next time, keep integrating, innovating, and shaping the future of education. Happy teaching.
Don't forget to subscribe to our Integrate This YouTube channel and to follow us on Instagram and X for the latest tutorials and discussions in EdTech. Next week, we're going to start a series comparing the best AI options for students. So if you've liked our previous AI themed episodes we've had, you won't want to miss the next ones coming up. Look forward to seeing you next time.
And Jeremy and I will be at the TIE Conference in South Dakota, April 15th through the 16th. So if you're there, be sure to look for us in our Integrate This t-shirts. If you have other events or presentations you would like us to do, please reach out on our socials. You can find those links in the show description.